So, welcome to the TD Report, everybody. I'm your host, David Combs, here with Jody Coleman out there in the Midwest for us. TK, Tony, you rocking that University of Maryland Terrapins hat. So it must be Len Bias week.
It's Lenny week, baby. Len Bias week. Want to make sure that we don't get all the stuff with Juneteenth, just it's getting bigger. And I want to make sure that we don't lose track of what happened with Len Bias, because the younger generation right now needs to hear his story. Because with all the fentanyl and everything that's going on, I want them to know that they're not invincible, that it can happen, it could happen. And hopefully it won't happen to any of our young athletes, but it's a reality and it's happened before. So
I believe it was Time Magazine when Len Bias died. The cover was "Death of a Dream," and literally for us locals and for college basketball fans across the country, it literally was the death of a dream. Growing up here in the DC area, like Tony and myself did, um, my older cousins played against Len. Just talking about as a high schooler, what a great player he was. He was a known commodity here in the DC area, not as much nationally. He played only at a couple of the major shoe company tournaments and ratings camps that they do. So nationally, he wasn't as well known coming out of high school. But once he got to the University of Maryland and had that breakout sophomore season, and people realized in a loaded ACC with stars like Brad Daugherty and Michael Jordan down at North Carolina that were always there, that were there, North Carolina always being there, and seeing Lenny go up against them athletically and just being able to not just hold his own, he was dominant. Jody, what are your thoughts about Len Bias as far as Len Bias, the player? What you saw from what you know?
Well, actually, Len Bias was known in the Midwest. We heard about Len Bias when I was a kid. I'm probably about 7, 8 years of age, and I'm hearing about my older brother talking about this guy Len Bias. Like, man, I'm like, who is Len Bias? I don't know who he is, but when he hit Maryland, like you said, he played down there, and the ACC was always loaded. Y'all come from a mecca of basketball down in the DC area. So when Len Bias hit the scene, I thought Len Bias was going to be Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan.
It's incredible.
I
He
think
was incredible.
Michael's a little bit older than Len, but he was supposed to come in and be to the NBA with the Boston Celtics. Me and Tony talked off camera this morning. We're talking about what if he plays, and we talking about the Boston Celtics coming off of three Larry Bird having 3 straight MVP seasons, winning the championship 2 out of them 3 seasons. Just imagine if you throw Len Bias in that mix with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. And we know that Larry Bird had back problems, but guess what? He could have did a little bit of load management with letting Len Bias come in and be the leading scorer and the leader on that team. And we never got an opportunity to see that. And that's what's really sad because of the tragedy. And I like what Tony said, because we got a lot of young athletes that do fentanyl and all these different drugs and think that they're immune to it. They're not immune to it. Len Bias was a case that everybody needs to study, and it never needs to go away, because a lot of these athletes think, you got to think, most of these athletes like a LeBron James been catered to since they was in the fourth grade. When you see top-notch athletes, they get catered to at a very early age. They're never told no. You know what I'm saying? They can do what they want. Sometimes they're bigger than the law. Sometimes they come from these small cities and they become bigger than the city. Like a LeBron James, using that example. When he came from Akron, he was bigger than the city. Let's be real. And Len Bias is showing you that you can be touched. We had a guy here in Dayton, Ohio named Dwight Anderson. I don't know if y'all heard of Dwight Anderson. Dwight Anderson was if you read anything on him, the Blue Blur, he's from Dayton, Ohio, and he got strung out on drugs real bad. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he made it. He played for Kentucky, went to the NBA, and that was our version of Len Bias. So that's my thought process on that, Tony and Dave.
Appreciate it, man. Those are great thoughts and great sentiments. Tony, Jody talked about and you talked about what might have been with the Celtics, and talking about how that front court rotation would have worked. Now, Larry Bird hasn't talked about Len Bias's death very much, but what we do know is he was excited to get Lenny to Boston to get him working out right after the draft. He was balls out where he was going to come to camp and play with the rookies. He was excited. He wanted to get on the court with that guy.
Yeah, what Lenny probably would have started is kind of what we have now. Remember we talked about how basketball is kind of a positionless sport?
Josh Page said that on our show. That's right. Shout out to Josh.
Yeah, well, Lenny is a 3. Bird's a 3. But Lenny could have come in where it was Lenny and Bird. Well, who plays the 3? Well, it's a positionless sport. So they both could play the 3, and you can have Robert Parrish at the 5, or Kevin McHale at the 5, or Bill Walton at the 5. With those two guys playing what they do now, what they call the 2 and the 3, which are swing positions. I mean, I'm just was thinking about their roster and how it would have changed. And like I said, on TD Report, we came up with some good stuff. We started from what Len Bias in 1986, Juneteenth, which is Jody's birthday. In 1986, and we started and go back to the parallel universe or alternate universe and talk about what would have. What would have the Lakers? I'm a Laker fan. I don't think my Lakers would have been the team of the decade had Len Bias gone to Boston. I mean, it's just you think about it. I told you guys it's the only time in basketball history, and you will never see it. They checked out. It was Dennis Johnson at the 1, Bird at the 2. It was McHale at the 3, Parrish at the 4, and Walton at the 5. They did that for about 5 minutes or something. Well, all 5 of those guys are Hall of Famers.
They are.
You will never see that again on any basketball court. Now imagine that. You have that 5, and you had the best player coming out that year in college.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is how Red Auerbach did business, Tony. Red Auerbach was able to finagle draft picks and be in a position to get guys coming out of college that were at the top of their game. Now, one of the players that we talk about in that era, when Len Bias was at Maryland, you had Ralph Sampson at UVA. You had Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. You had David Robinson at Navy. So this DC, Maryland, Virginia area had some of the best college talent spread out across the region, to where you as a reporter could you could be down at North Carolina and see Len Bias play at the Dean Dome. Drive north, you could hit a UVA game and see Ralph Sampson play. You could drive up to the Cap Center, you could see Patrick Ewing play. You see what I'm saying? That's the type of talent that was swirling around this area. It was absolutely incredible, an incredible time for us to be growing up. And we were very fortunate to have been able to see it. So, Dev, as we bring in Devin from POV Sports, how you doing, Dev?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Doing great. Len Bias Week here on the show. Let's talk about something that is a now type of thing. Can you imagine a Lenny Bias, a Ralph Sampson, a Patrick Ewing here in or near this major media market and being in an NIL landscape? Can you imagine the type of revenue that a Lenny Bias at the old Cole Fieldhouse could generate? Big game, North Carolina coming up to the DC area to play. Just imagine that.
Yeah, it would have been amazing. Len Bias probably would have been in the top 2 or 3 in college basketball with NIL money. He would have been he would have been like you see the Bryce Youngs and C.J. Strouds were making.
Yeah,
Caleb Williams is making
and
it
that's
right now.
football.
That's
Yeah.
football. Basketball, he'd be making the money. He might be making the money Bronny's making. I mean, he was a
Woo!
phenomenon. He was a phenomenon. And
I don't know about the Bronny money. That's what Bronny's doing right now is so unprecedented.
Bronny's doing his, it doesn't hurt that his dad is LeBron. That helps huge. But
That's
he's
okay.
getting
Yeah.
he's getting I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad. I'm just saying I think when you look at what Len Bias was doing, Michael Jordan was already in the pros.
Correct.
There was not another guy that could do the stuff Lenny was doing. So we're talking 6'8", 230, 235, chiseled, freak of nature, jump shot, athleticism through the roof. And he would have made some major money in this NIL stuff. He would have cleaned up. It would have NIL, Maryland University would have been a lot going on up there. Like it would have been a lot more happening than what we see today because of what Len Bias would have. They haven't had a guy like that. I mean, Juan Dixon came through and won the whole thing. Walt Williams came through and kind of saved the program by choosing Maryland. And, you had a couple others that have come through and been really good, but no one was Lenny. Lenny was Lenny.
When you look at what a school would have in terms of that singular player that tilts the floor in your team's direction the second he steps onto it, you could put hundreds of guys through a University of Virginia and be great guys, All-Americans. They're never going to be Ralph Sampson. You could have hundreds of guys come through Georgetown. They're never going to be Pat Ewing. It's that big guy. They're never going to have a guy, as Rick Pitino would say, Len Bias isn't going to walk through that door. That kid, when he got there, we would look at him and be like, yo, he a freshman? This joker he was amazing. Now, TK, you remember when he got to Maryland. You remember when he was, at Northwestern, coming to Maryland.
Yeah.
What was the talk around the county amongst the basketball players?
I saw Lenny play. Lenny's last year was 81, 82. And then he went to Maryland 82, 83, 83, 84, 84, 85, 85, 86. So I got to see Lenny when I was in 6th grade because our teacher was so cool, Mr. Green. That's the year that he would let us watch the AC tournament. Y'all remember the AC tournament used to come on Friday during the day.
Yes.
It used to be the opening round, used to be the AC tournament. So at noon, they would start the games. And that year, it was one of my first year playing organized ball. We would go up and we saw Lenny play at Bladensburg, my school. And I got a chance to see Lenny in high school. And then we went to the state championship game, the first one I ever went to. Y'all won't believe it, but a guy named Vernon Butler, who ended up playing at High Point. High Point played Northwestern. Vernon Butler hit almost a half-court shot over Lenny to win the state championship. Now, I'm going to tell you something. They played years later in the NCAA tournament, and they talked about that shot and everything else. Lenny scorched him in the tournament. I mean, absolutely scorched him because I guess he got tired of hearing that crap, losing the state championship, being a poster, and all that other stuff. I mean, Lenny was special, guys. And, in this area, we always talk about what would have been. But I like to say that the death of Len Bias probably saved a lot of people's lives. It probably saved a lot of kids' lives because when it happened to him, the shock, you know how it is when something happens like that, the shock probably stopped a lot of people who was thinking about doing drugs. It probably saved their lives. I know it did with me. I didn't think twice about it after Len Bias died.
As I move, great stuff, Tony. As I move over to Jody, ESPN analyst Jay Billis was at Duke around the time that Len Bias was at Maryland. And whenever he's asked to give, his top 5 all-time ACC players, he almost always puts Len Bias in there in the top 3, and he ain't 3. Okay, he always says what a great player and Len Bias was. Him being a front court guy. When you go up against a guy like that, that's chiseled, skilled, and is just so powerful, I mean, what do you do with him once he gets you down on the box? I mean, he had that turnaround. He had that turnaround jump shot that was virtually unblockable. It might as well have been a hook. I mean, because he got so much elevation on that. What do you do with a guy down there that you just can't get a hold of?
You know, with Len Bias, man, he had that mid-range game. He had the low post game. He was one of those guys that was extremely versatile and was hard to defend. And he didn't worry about shooting the three because they didn't have the three-point line. So, you know, it's very difficult. Like, he reminds you of the modern-day Kevin Durant, where he's so difficult and so crafty. And you at what, 6'9", you could put him on the block. And then what he was very underrated at, I believe, was defensively. I think he was awesome defensively in there.
He was great. He's a great defender.
He didn't really, you know, sometimes when you're so good offensively, people forget how good defensively you are. like a Kobe Bryant and like a LeBron, like a Michael Jordan. Both of those guys were all defensive teams pretty much their whole career. But we always talk about what they can do on the offensive side of the ball, and that's what Len Bias was able to do. So if he was in today's game right now, I mean, he would probably be the 5. He can handle the rock. He would definitely be a problem. He would probably be a top 5 player in the league right now because of his versatility and what he can do.
I love seeing him, the pictures that we have of them and the video and film that we do have of them. I always like seeing Mike and Lenny match up, you know, whenever that could happen, because it's almost like you literally, what you're watching is you're just watching 2, you know, amazing athletes go head up against one another. And I love seeing those, you know, those pictures of, you know, Mike trying to get by Lenny with the dribble, you know, Mike trying to keep, you know, Lenny out of the post. You know, Dean Smith used to say to Mike, just keep him, make him face up. Because that's the only chance we really have, is to make him face up. If you get him down on the box, there's nothing Mike could have done. You know, Lenny was going to get his shot off. You know, that was all there was to it, especially that turnaround on the baseline. That was unblocked. That shot was unblockable. What do you think about that, Devin, as far as seeing Mike and Lenny on the court, on an ACC court at the same time?
I mean, you got probably, outside of David Thompson, probably the 2 most electric athletes to ever come through the ACC.
Which is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, David Thompson's the only guy that I would put on par with them athletically. Maybe Vince Carter. Maybe Vince Carter later.
Yeah, that's the 4. That's the only
4. I mean, I don't have a 5th guy that was on that level athletically. I mean,
Grant Hill.
He's
Grant
right
Hill
there.
He was close, but I think they had levels that Grant even couldn't get to them 4. I think as good as Grant was, Grant was close, but
very close.
Mike, Vince, and, you know, maybe Grant Hill. Before that injury, he was looking a lot like. But those are probably your 5 best athletes that ever come through the ACC that I know about.
Another DMV guy, mind you.
Yeah, and it was just amazing, I mean, you're talking the grace and the finesse and the. You know, basketball is meant to be graceful and beautiful and finesse-like, and those guys embody that. Yeah, they could be physical and muck it up, but the game is supposed to be played with a nice ball handling ability and able to get to your spot and elevate and get to your shots and create for others. And, you know, them 5 guys there, man, they did it in the ACC. It don't get no better than what they can do. It don't. It just, I mean, the stuff that them 5 could do and do it, and it's just at will. I mean, just anytime they felt like it, it's like, I'm gonna do this. There's nothing you can do about it, and you just gotta hope I miss. You know
the list of guys. Even if you extend the ACC's normal, you know, the DC area footprint, and extrapolate that out, extrapolate it north for the Big East and south for the ACC, you could literally go from the 757 up to New York City. And me and you and Dev and Jody, and we could all sit here for an hour and pick out guys and name players. You could go Allen Iverson. You could go J.R. Reed.
Joe
You
Smith.
could go, hey, shout out to
Lonzo
Alonzo. Hey,
J.R. Reed.
Shout out to our boy,
Jerry Stackhouse.
Monty Williams, the new coach of the Detroit Pistons.
Yep.
If he
Jerry
doesn't have that
Stackhouse.
heart murmur in college, we'd be talking about him in that Grant Hill category of how good he was.
Yep.
The Potomac High School, Monty Williams.
The
The Potomac High
yes.
School.
We could go hours with just names. And that the one thing that I'll say about the University of Maryland moving out to the Big Ten, that extends that recruiting footprint of the DMV further west,
all the way out to Jody.
Out to Big Ten territory, to where now, if you look at a school like Penn State, that has been basically pulling Maryland, DC area football players for the better part of what, Tony and Dev, 40 years?
50 years.
50 years. Can you imagine if they could have done that in basketball all that time? That's amazing.
Wow.
Them jokers arrogant about it too. They put up billboards in Baltimore to show you how many kids they took from here. They arrogant
Penn
with
State,
it, man.
listen, Joe Paterno spent so much time in Maryland. We should have sprinkled some damn Old Bay on his old ass.
Yeah, I remember.
He was literally here all the time, sir.
Well, 2005, he came here and took the top 7 players in the state with him to Penn State, all 7.
We also know who kind of helped with that. That was
Larry Johnson.
That was Larry Johnson. That was
Larry
senior.
Johnson.
That was senior. Yeah.
But it didn't help that Ralph Friedgen was so adamant that he wasn't going to play freshman. That didn't help you. You can't tell Phil Taylor and even Marvin Austin went to North Carolina. He was on the list. He was
Derek Williams,
dominating. Derek Williams. We had BJ Lackey down at BJ Walton down at Lackey, and you had Aaron Abron up at Mount St. Joe's, and you had
Tony Loganell,
and then you had Lord, it was so Navarro Bowman.
Oh my God, him too.
You had all these guys. You had all these guys. Man. You talking literally came in here and took the top. Derek, we forgot about AJ Wallace from McDonough, where Larry Johnson was coach.
I forgot. And that's a Baltimore guy. And that's a Baltimore guy. Yeah.
Who? No, that's McDonough and Waldorf.
Oh, the other McDonough.
Yeah.
Down near LaFleur, down in Pomfret. Yeah. Pumphrey. He that was the fastest guy in the state after Derek Williams that year, and they got him too.
Yeah, Derek Williams
just came and took everybody, and it's like Friedgen. That was the end of Friedgen right there. That was the beginning of the end. You can't let them come in here and take all 7 of them guys. Just can't let them happen.
Yeah, that was a recruiting. That was a recruiting coup, and that's football. In basketball, we look at what happened. What's that? Go ahead, TK.
That's what I was telling Jody, that's why you see Maryland and you judge us. And from where Jody's sitting in Dayton, if you ask people about Maryland, they say, oh, y'all got some great basketball. But Jody, imagine all those names that we just named, Jody. Imagine all of them stay at University of Maryland. It's a whole big difference on how you see our area for football. See, that's how you see our area based upon how the colleges are doing. And by us not keeping those guys and they struggling, it makes it seem like we're not good in football. But in reality, we just can name in each recruiting class all these people that Maryland didn't get, Jody. So when Ohio State played Maryland, Jody, Ohio State is playing bits and pieces they never get to see. Like Ohio State's roster, Jody, is 80% Ohio.
Pretty much, yeah.
Other. Maryland ain't even 80% Maryland.
No, nope. Not even close. Not even close.
Tony, think about this. What makes recruiting so difficult here, and maybe I can get Devin on my side on this, what makes recruiting football so different here, and even basketball here, is the transitional nature of the DC metro area. People come here, stay here a little while, and then move on, whether it's military, whether it's tech sector, another big employer here, aerospace engineering, NASA. Lots of kids come here that folks work at NASA. The kid ends up over at Roosevelt. They're here for maybe 4 or 6 years and then they're out. So their ties to the DC area, all these kids aren't necessarily 100% DC born and bred. There's nothing against that, but they're here for the time they're from in high school, but their ties might still be back to where they're from. That might be some of the reason why a Maryland, for example, or a Georgetown can't necessarily get every single kid out of here because of the transitional nature of what the DC metro area is. What do you think about that, Deb? What do you think about my theory?
You couldn't have said it better. That's what it is. That is the main reason that you see so many top guys in the area. You know, it's a little bit more heading around now with Loxley. He's doing much better than what we were getting. But, you know, when you consider, you still look around and you see a lot of these, like I saw yesterday, #1 ranked offensive lineman in the state from Flowers High School is going to Florida.
Yep.
You know, and 6'8", 310 pounds. I mean, he's a freak of nature. He's got another year of high school. I mean, the kid gave up 1 sack in 2 years for Flowers. I mean, that's the kind of guy that you got to keep, because he changes a program overnight. You put him on one side of that line, you have no worries for 3 years. You just say, give him a chance to play in the Big Ten. That's the kind of guy you need to keep, because you're going up against these Big Ten guys.
It's a building block.
You can't let that kind of mammoth get out of the area. You got to keep that guy. And
well, that's not the first time Florida's come up here to get a big left tackle. They came up about 10 years ago and got Pete White out of St. John's. And I couldn't believe they came all the way up here to get an offensive lineman, because 10 years ago, SEC schools didn't come up here to recruit, ever.
Yeah.
They didn't have to. You see
let
what
me tell you that Azar did a huge part of that when he went to Alabama for that 1 year.
From Friendship Collegiate.
Nick Saban used him to do more tapping into the DMV than he'd ever done, and that began the gravy train for the SEC to come into Maryland to the DMV. That opened up the Jonathan Allen from Stonebridge. That opened up some of the other guys from the Virginia schools that you see going to Alabama now. That
Tim Settle.
Tim Settle,
and
then down to Tech, and then you see the kid Sean Murphy, who's at Bama, who was at Stonewall Jackson, who was the #1 inside linebacker 2 years ago, who will probably play a lot this year. He goes to Alabama. Then you got Richie Pettibone's grandson went to Alabama, didn't play much, but he was at Gonzaga. Remember, he flew down to Alabama.
Big
lineman. Yeah. So, you know, it's just things have changed, you know, and it's crazy. But like you guys said, Maryland has the pieces. If they could keep the big, like me and Tony was talking one day, the big issue, losing skill position isn't a problem. You can't afford to lose your lineman. You don't have enough as it is to be losing guys from Flowers, and there's a kid over at really good player. Wise has 2 that aren't even looking at Maryland. They're both 6'5", 310-pound guys that aren't even looking at Maryland right now. You know, it's like, those are the guys that you got to keep, because that's your big issue right now. The trenches in the against the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Michigan States, you know, those kind of Penn State. That's where you lose games. It's not skill wise. You have skills. Your skills can keep up. Me and Tony was sitting in the stadium last year against Ohio State, and Maryland went up and down the field on them all day long. But when they had to have it, they couldn't block Ohio State with the game on the line. They came around, made a strip sack and won the game. You know, that's the stuff that is going to always be, you know, in their way. They can't make the play on the offensive and defensive lines when they have to. Just can't do it right now.
Hey, Jody, let me come up to you here. What do you feel as traction as far as the Midwest pulling east and pulling kids out of the DC metro area? And I'm not just talking about just to the Michigans and the Ohio States. Ohio State and Michigan traditionally have been so good that when they really wanted a guy from here, they just come and get him. Doug Dutch from Gonzaga High School went out to Michigan. Blake Countess from Good Counsel went to Michigan. You know, they're pulling on the academic piece. That's how the Catholic League is set up. So your high academic schools, your Michigans, even as far out as your Stanfords, but let's keep it in the Big Ten, your Ohio States, they can sell that to those kids, the Gonzagas, the St. John's, and so on and so forth. But what do you think about the pull of the Midwest from the Big Ten?
You know, the crazy part about it is with the Big Ten expanding to USC and UCLA, you're going to have an even bigger pool. It's schools like Indiana that's getting in that East Coast pool, and they grabbing some of the kids from the Indianas and the Northwesterns, because Northwestern is the Ivy League of the Big Ten. So they're able to come to get those Catholic kids from you. And that's why Northwestern is so good. If you look at their roster, they got a lot of kids from the East Coast on their roster, not
I
just
like
the
it.
state of Illinois. So you got that component, and then you have the offensive line component with the Wisconsins and the Iowas, two schools that are known for having offensive linemen and tight ends. So they're coming to DMV and the East Coast, and they're grabbing a lot of players, and that's making the grab for those schools who have always been like the middle of the pack teams, always above 500 kind of teams. That's going to make them that much better. But like I said, with that component with the DMV and the Marylands, then you go all the way across the country. Now we're going to be able to touch bases with the Californias, the USCs, the Southern California, getting those kids from South Central LA coming all the way to the Midwest to come play football. So the Big Ten could catch up with the SEC at some point when it comes to talent, because now we can go from east to west. We're not saying that the SEC doesn't have that grab, but their hotbed is right there in their own neighborhood, their own, Florida, Alabama, those schools, Georgia, hotbeds for football. That's where a lot of guys from SEC is coming from. But if you can go and expand, if I'm in Maryland, I can recruit in Ohio. Now I can recruit in California. They can compete with anybody and across the country.
Hey, Tony, you jump back on for a second.
Yes,
Great
sir.
stuff, Jody. I love that. Tony, what do you think about that expansion west, as Jody brought up? Great point. At that point, if you are USC, for example, you can come east to the Midwest. You can come all the way over to the coast, and basically you can sell warm weather and better training. As far as better, longer seasons to train in. What do you think about that?
Well, first, you're correct, and that's a big picture thinking. They had to jump on top of the SEC before the SEC ravaged the ACC up, so they had to make their first move. And the Big Ten, fortunately for them, those are land-grant universities, which means as long as the state is there, those universities will be there and they will be funded. So it's a hell of a move, man. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. If you're a Big Ten person, it's one of the biggest moves of our lifetime to go grab USC and UCLA. And bring a kid from Maryland or DC or New York can go out to LA and be like, man, this is my home, and his people will see him. I mean, Guys, let's look at it. They're talking about creating a Saturday, just like the NFL Sunday, a game at 1, 12, a game at 3, a game at 7, and a game at 10. That's all day, man.
But Tony, which is what we have now, except what you're saying is it would be one league.
One league.
That would just be one league. We have that now, right? You can turn on a Stanford USC game here on the East Coast. You can turn that on, and it's coming on at like what, 9:30, something like that. It's the 9 o'clock window back east. But what you're talking about would be an all conference day. Yes.
All day.
Let me talk about that real quick. To bring this back to also to college basketball. I think that ESPN and college basketball owe Georgetown, Pat Ewing, and John Thompson a debt of gratitude. It was that program was the reason for the whole concept of Big Monday. So during college basketball season, they would put the Big East front and center on Big Monday, and it would be usually a single or a double header. And any given week on a Monday, you could turn on the TV on ESPN. You would see either Georgetown, St. John's, Syracuse. Those were like the three big ones. And then they would throw in a Providence, and throw in a UConn, every now and then, Seton Hall. Yeah. Those are some good sized, medium to large media markets, but all pulled in on Monday. What you guys are talking about, Jody and Tony, in football, you're talking about playing football all stinking day, and it's the Big Ten, coast to coast. which is crazy. You know, I can't wait to see that as much as I love college football. But you talk about that Big Monday product that that ESPN came up with and basically packaged and sold. That did a lot. And don't forget, at that time, the Big East was not the dominant league in the country. It was a newer league. The ACC and the Big Ten were the big boys. Big East was the new kid on the block.
Yep. But Dev, this question is for Dev. We talk about what the Big Ten did with getting USC and UCLA, but the SEC came with a haymaker, and they came and took Texas and Oklahoma and brought to the SEC. Though we failed to mention that one.
That's a big move.
That's a good move. Good. I mean, both conferences couldn't have asked for anything better. I think they both got what they wanted. You're going to see super conferences. They're the most powerful conferences in the country, and it's the best football's played in them two conferences. So why not try to, make a super conference? I don't see nothing wrong with what they're doing. I'd hope they keep the rivalries. They still want to keep. I think the SEC is sticking to a 3-game. You get your 3 rivalries, and then we switch around and jump around a little bit. But it'll still be Alabama's rivals will still be Tennessee, Auburn, and give me 1 second. Tennessee, Auburn, and I believe not Georgia. They don't play Georgia every 4 or 5 years in regular season. It's Tennessee, Auburn, and it's one other.
LSU would be a good one if they could do it.
Is it LSU? I think it's Tennessee, Auburn.
Tennessee and Florida. Who are you talking about? Who's rival?
Alabama.
Alabama's rival games.
Tennessee. It's Tennessee, Auburn, and somebody else. It's not LSU.
Ole Miss.
Well, you can't.
Ole Miss.
It's not Ole Miss, but your point is an excellent point. If they do it that way, you still hold those rivalry games, and then you can put together some new intra-regional things where, for example, you can run LSU Texas every other year, and that's a hell of a game.
Yeah.
As far as for bragging rights, for recruiting, a lot of those recruiting turfs between LSU and Texas, their recruiting turfs, East and West, they overlap.
Yeah, they meet. They meet in the middle. They do.
Yeah.
They do.
So that's a big recruiting. That's one, Dev, and as a high school coach, LSU and Texas play every high school, every legit high school coach in Texas and Louisiana is going to be at that game.
You know what's funny? Speaking of the LSU Texas thing, LSU got lucky because Jamar Chase was slated to go to Texas. Texas fired Herman and brought in Sarkisian. Sarkisian didn't reach out to Chase like he thought he would. Chase flipped to TCU. TCU botched his recruitment announcement on NFL Network, so he went back to LSU, and it all turned out he ended up winning the Biletnikoff, a natty, and being the number 1 receiver taken in the draft after sitting out with COVID, with the COVID year. So the state of Texas had him, and they both botched him. TCU botched him, and Texas botched him, so he went back to LSU. And for LSU's sake, they don't go 15-0 and all that stuff with Joe Burrow without Jamar Chase. He was the one receiver that, as good as Jefferson was, he was the guy that tore people up because
he was a dog.
Look at the game. He embarrassed Trevon Diggs against Alabama, and he cooked AJ Terrell in that championship game. He flat out annihilated him. And I told people, a lot of people didn't know who Jamar Chase was because they were Justin Jefferson was the big name, and even Torrance Marshall, the other receiver, was higher ranked and higher rated. And I kept saying Jamar Chase's issue was he was a little overweight at the time. He had kind of pudgy. You see a little thick guy. He was a little pudgy. He lost that weight. He went to that speed guy, and now you see one of the best receivers on the planet in the NFL Weekly. The guy's unbelievable. But that's a great story about the crossing of the recruiting. I mean, it's real, man. Yeah. It's a real thing.
And now they're going to be conference brethren, which is going to, let's be honest, you've seen, every now and then there's a flare up in the SEC where the coaches don't see eye to eye, and they get after each other a little bit. So those conference phone calls Weekly phone calls can get a little testy, and the dueling press conferences where Saban will make a veiled reference to something that he saw that he didn't like, and then the opposing coach is going to say something about Nick, and that's what I love about college football is these guys really are running their own little kingdoms, right? Nick has his little kingdom, right? And every other coach has his little kingdom and his little subjects, his loyal subjects, and everyone's trying to hold on to what they have, and they go at each other on Saturdays. It's amazing. Now, Jody, are we going to start seeing that in the big? Are we going to start seeing these coaches kind of flare up at each other because they're all after Ryan Day? They want to chop his head off. That's who everybody wants to be.
Well, you know what? When you bring in a Lincoln Riley, a very big personality into the Big Ten, you already got the biggest personality in the Big Ten is Harbaugh. Let's keep it all the way real. Harbaugh, he's the draw. When it comes to coaches, he's the absolute draw in the Big Ten. But I think we have really never seen the level of coaching that the SEC has had. The Big Ten has never at one time had the level of coaches, personality type based coaches that the SEC has had. And I think
not since Hayes and Schembechler, no.
Yeah, we're talking about over 30, 40 years ago. But now you bring a Chip Kelly and a Lincoln Riley with the Jim Harbaugh, with a merging of Ryan Day. Ryan Day has to beat Michigan before his personality can even be, if people can even pay attention to his personality. You have to beat Michigan because technically he has not really beaten Michigan and when he has been the guy.
I'm surprised Jody, I'm surprised you even said the M word. You're supposed to call them that school upstate.
Until we beat north. Hey, listen, until we beat them,
that team up north.
We need to shut the hell up till we beat them. And that's all the way real. Like, I'm not used to losing to them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna have to give them respect.
You didn't used to. Something happened.
Listen, we supposed to beat them every year. We supposed to beat them every year. We don't slack up. We don't have years off. We don't take days off. But what I'm more interested in Ohio, with the Ohio State getting USC finally, because if you look at the last couple times USC has played Ohio State, they have beat the crap out of us. So I remember when Matt Barkley came into the shoe and he was a freshman and we had the biggest crowd in Ohio State history, and Matt Barkley beat us at home. And a year after, Pete Carroll said he wanted to score 100 points on us, and he beat us 35-3. So I can't wait to sink my teeth into USC on a regular basis because, we ain't forgot. We ain't forgot Columbus.
You bring up a good point. Let me ask this for the panel. I'm going to start with Tony. I'll go to Devin, and I'm going to let you clean up at the end. Tony, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State going out, maybe playing a Stanford, playing a USC as league opponents. Is that too much of a good thing as far as the Rose Bowl? The Rose Bowl was kind of that treat at the end of the year to see a Big Ten team go west. What do you think about that? You're on mute.
If I'm running the Big Ten, here's a scenario that will make everyone happy. USC, Ohio State goes out to play USC. Michigan goes out to play UCLA. One game starts at noon or 3. The other game starts at 7. That is a hell of a weekend. I mean, can you imagine how far the city of LA would be?
Mm-hmm.
But I got it even better for you. Can you imagine when they go out and they go back-to-back games and they go one day on Labor Day weekend on a Saturday, it's Michigan versus UCLA in SoFi, and on the Sunday, Labor Day weekend, it's Ohio State versus USC.
Stop it, man.
All out in the SoFi, dude. I mean, it doesn't look. No conference can put anything together like that. Now, maybe the SEC, if you put Alabama versus Florida and Auburn versus Georgia in the back-to-back days inside the dome at the Peach Bowl. But those are the type of things that they're going to be doing because that's what it's about. You got to show the conference.
Well, Tony, what do you think about
that? Yeah. Go for it.
I'm my fault. Go ahead, Dave.
No,
Say
I was
again.
coming to you next. You're good.
But what about using Jerry's World for Alabama, Texas,
That's what I was thinking for the Red Ribbon.
Alabama, Texas, and Jerry's World, and then you could do Texas, you could do Oklahoma, Georgia down there as well. it's those conferences. I'm telling you, man, it don't get no better than that.
Hey, man, pass the ribs. Pass the ribs.
It's the same thing. It's the
I would love that.
It's the exact same thing, but the conferences got to have vision like that to do something like that. I mean, that requires for you to have big time vision.
Because you could look at the Kroenke and Jerry. Kroenke and Jerry got to be sitting back smiling because
they'll do it.
Why is
they like money? They like money.
Off the blank, they got to be smiling right now.
Why is the ACC doing it right now?
Yeah,
why don't they take the Georgia Dome and put Notre Dame, Clemson, and then you can go Florida State versus Virginia Tech or somebody like that.
Miami.
Or Miami.
Florida State, Miami. I'll buy that.
Or you can take Miami versus Clemson and Florida State versus Notre Dame back-to-back weekends. I mean, back-to-back days in that nice dome. Those are the type of things that conferences need to start looking at to keep the people in your conference. The Big Ten got it. The SEC is already going to do it because, see, to me, the SEC knows who they are. They know what they got. The Big Ten is exploring, but kudos, because here's how they make money. And I'm going to leave it at this. When I worked the bowl game, we used to look at TV markets. The first 4 of the top 5 TV markets start next season, not this season. They're all lie in the Big Ten.
Yeah, they are.
Out of the top 5 will all lie in the Big Ten. That means that they will make the most money because when you got the TV market, that's what goes. And real quick, to understand that, the NFL went a quarter century without having the number 2 TV market in LA. When they got it, they doubled down and put 2 teams there. Those teams aren't there because they're good. Those teams are there because that's the second biggest TV market in the world. And they need teams there to grab that money. That's how
they need eyes. They need eyes on the screen. Yeah.
Y'all notice that the NFL salaries went up, the TV contracts went up after they got the LA market. That is why the Big Ten did what they did. That is why eventually the SEC is going to go grab Miami. They're going to go grab Georgia Tech. They're going to go grab all those schools and
Clemson.
Get them in Florida State, because they need the TV markets to be big and to go grab and do whatever they need to do. Now,
that's crazy.
But the big thing in this is, fellas, I did this for a living. The Big 12 is going to come out smelling like roses because they're going to grab what's left over of the Pac-12, and they're going to grab the Big 12, and they're going to come up and grab the last little bit of the ACC. And they're going to be able to stretch from east to west also. Because remember, you're going to have a 2-tier. You're going to have the Pac, you're going to have the Big 10, the SEC, but then there's going to be room for another conference that's going to grab all those players. And what we're not putting into the equation, y'all heard it here first on the TD report. When the big thing merged, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, and those teams will not win the national championships. Reason being is because their first and second round draft picks are not going to be on that field risking that many games with the draft coming right behind them. So that means they're going to be playing backup players against the teams who are been good teams all year, couldn't beat them at full strength. But when you start taking away the Bryce Youngs of the world, the running backs from Ohio State, the wide receivers from Ohio State, the DBs from Alabama, those aren't the same teams. Right. So when they got to go play a Memphis or a UCF or Oregon, They won't win those games, folks. So we asked for this playoffs, Jody. We asked for this playoffs. This playoffs is not going to be good because your kid, every last one of you guys on here got boys as kids. You would not let your kid play if he had first round thing, and you talking about playing 3 extra games.
Not
You're
football.
not putting $35 million on the line.
Not football,
what?
and probably not
Are
basketball.
you, Jody? Talk to me.
No, I mean, you know what? I'm not doing it either because you're absolutely correct on that one. And we go back to what Dave's point was, and you alluded to it as well, Tony. We asked about the lure of the Rose Bowl. And is the Rose Bowl the grandfather of them all? I'm going to say no, and I think the playoffs had already diluted it unless you put one of the playoff games in the Rose Bowl. If you don't
I
do
think
that,
that's what they have to do to keep them. They have to do that, Jody. That's the only way those bowls, the big bowls, are going to survive.
Yeah,
is they have to be part of the new model.
Nobody cares, like, because normally look at what happened in the Big Ten. You took Ohio State and Michigan and put them in the championship round. So who did you put in the Rose Bowl? What I can't remember. We had Penn State, Wisconsin, something in the Rose Bowl.
It's Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl.
Nobody cared about that. That's the third place team. When normally the Rose Bowl is supposed to take the best team from the Pac-10, the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And you lost that lure because now nobody's watching. I want to see what the ratings are. Dave, you know what the ratings are on that game?
I'm gonna research it and give it to Cody so he can. We put an article up about it. Put a graphic up on that. I think that's a good point.
Hey, Jody. So what I just told you when we said we're doing it in SoFi, so they're going to be playing preseason Rose Bowls now. Michigan versus USC.
Right.
You know
what?
We're doing preseason Rose Bowls, preseason Peach Bowl, preseason Sugar Bowls, preseason Fiesta Bowls. Because at the end of the season, it's not going to be the same. That's the reason why I want to go to the Rose Bowl this year, because this is the last year of the existing Rose Bowl that's going to happen on New Year's Day. I want to be able to experience. Pardon me. I want to be able to experience the damn Rose Bowl parade on New Year's Day.
In person.
I want to be able to experience that one time. I've never seen that.
Back to this is more for Dev, because if you go back to what you just said, Tony, which is accurate, but when you look at the Alabamas and Ohio States of the world, even if you strip them of their top guys, they still got be around. They still got other guys. It's going to actually, you know what? Now think about it, Dev. Look at this. You take away the top quarterback for Ohio State. Normally, we got another 5-star backup. Alabama got 5 stars at kicker. They got 2 5-star kickers on their roster, Tony.
But Jody, here's the thing. When you take away the quarterback and now you only got 3 weeks or 2 weeks to prepare, remember, they ain't been getting first-team reps. I don't care if you're a 5-star.
They still better than what these other teams got. I bet. Hold on. I bet you
they may be better.
Hold on. I bet you Ohio State and Alabama's practices and Georgia's practices are better than majority of their games on their schedule.
I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Very competitive.
I wouldn't doubt that. But when you start tampering with chemistry of a team, it's not the same team.
True.
I am telling you, we're talking now. A couple of years, there are going to be people complaining. And here's how you're going to solve it. You're going to have to bond all the players who have those grades. So hold on, let me explain. When you play Alabama play Auburn, Michigan play Ohio State, the very next day on Monday, those teams are allowed to go, the players are allowed to go to your athletic office and ask for their grade. It takes a couple of weeks for their grade to come in. So when the NFL comes back and give them a grade, they're going to have a system. If you're first round, Jody Coleman Jr., he's first round Ohio State running back. They're going to have to come back to a system, and they're going to have to say, okay, Jody, if he plays in this game, here's his insurance. His insurance will cover the contract and part of whatever the second signing bonus would have been.
Okay.
In order for these players to play. If you don't do that, business decisions will be made all around the country.
Absolutely.
So that means the first rounds, the second round dudes, the dudes who think they're in the second round, they're not playing. And
Tony,
that's
we're
over
already seeing that in
100-something
college.
players.
Tony, we're already seeing that in college basketball, where
Well,
guys
you
that
see
could
it
have
in
gone,
college football now.
yeah, where guys that could have gone pro, yeah, guys that could have gone pro, that NIL money comes in and they're like, I'm going to stick around.
Pittsburgh was a okay team with Pickett. They were absolutely awful without Pickett, and they played in that Peach Bowl. They were absolutely awful. But you're going to see that. And I'm not going to say Alabama, Ohio State going to be awful. But when it gets down close and you need a quarterback to drive, that quarterback who ain't been taking the reps, he's going to be a little bit, you're going to be a little pissed, Jody. Because you know what? You and Dev, y'all, hey, Cody, hold this conversation because I want to see the looks on y'all faces when this shit happens and y'all lose one of them games. Memphis upsets Alabama in the second round of the playoffs. And y'all will be like, man, we wouldn't have been doing that if we had our quarterback.
Overcooking their grits. You overcooking their grits, Tony.
But this is what you're not taking into accountability. A lot of times what's going to happen is these schools are going to play these freshmen and sophomore early that can't leave. You feel
they better play them.
You see what I'm saying? So that's going to be even better for Alabama and Ohio State.
And you know what, Jody? Playing them against Georgia State ain't gonna help them when they gotta go play against the Dogs. See, that little bit of work he got in mop-up time ain't the same thing to get you ready when the big boys in the playoffs.
Hey,
that's why Deion is gonna be successful because they're gonna make the playoffs, and somebody's gonna find a way to get that insurance policy. Until that insurance policy, it ain't happening, guys.
Hey, I got to get ready to roll, but we talked the whole hour, and we didn't mention the Denver Nuggets winning the championship.
Let's do that.
The Joker.
Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets, an old ABA team that came over to the NBA. They win their first championship. The Joker was incredible. Devin, you've got some good stats on that. Why don't you put him in historical perspective for us? How good was he?
I mean, he was dynamite. I mean, I don't. I'm not gonna go as far as saying he's one of the all-time greats at center right now. He's one of the. He's definitely can get mentioned. And go ahead.
I will.
You gonna mention him as all-time great?
He's up there with him. Listen, dog. He's what Sabonis would have been without the knee injuries. Without the knee injuries.
That's a good comp.
And with Russia, with Russia being Soviet Union. Had Russia and wasn't the Soviet Union, Sabonis would have given people problems, dude.
Let's also think about this. Arvydas Sabonis athletically at his prime was twice the player that the Joker is, twice the athlete.
Oh my goodness.
He was an incredible athlete.
Joe, do you remember Sabonis?
Absolutely.
I do.
Oh my goodness.
Incredible.
But what we not gonna do, I want to give the Joker all the credit in the world, but what we not gonna do is be a prisoner of the moment. We're not on the TD report, we're not gonna be a prisoner of the moment. We're not gonna act like we never seen this before. We're gonna act like this guy has done something we never seen before, because it's guys like Shaq, guys like David Robertson, guys like Tim.
No.
I'm just saying.
Stop.
No, because
multiple MVPs, Finals MVP, and a ring.
Tim Duncan, Shaq,
David Robinson,
Dream.
Come on, we act like we never seen this before, man.
Okay.
It's a rerun. It's a rerun.
I will say
Come on, Jody, you got to give him his love, though. Give him some love. Come on, Jody.
We haven't seen a big man pass the ball as efficiently and to the right people. And again, I go back to that stat. Since 2015, the most efficient play in the entire NBA has been a Joker post-up. It is. They average almost 2 points per possession when he posts up.
That's absurd.
That's crazy.
Dad, I get what you're saying, but when I get a big man, I don't get him there to pass. He's not. I don't draft him to be a passer.
But
In
he
a-
gets
in a
his numbers.
five-out
He gets his
world,
numbers,
but-
and he still see with their team. If he doesn't pass, it doesn't help the rest of the team because when they lost their one game, he only had 4 assists. When they won their 4 games, he averaged like 11. So their team isn't built outside of Jamal Murray to create offense on their own in him. So
Yeah, I would say
basically,
this.
you need him to do what he does. Michael Porter
Mhm.
Jr. and Bruce Brown and Pope and all them, they need him to create offense. And
That's what it is.
I watched him. I watch him at the free throw line, literally have floaters, and he'll see a guy creeping and throw the lob just to get his confidence up. And Porter Jr. got a dunk last night, and then he comes down and hits a 3 because of how Joker made sure he got him the ball to go in the rim. That is leadership. That is understanding the game. I got to give him that. He fakes it. And it's not pretty. Believe me, it is lumbering. It looks like it's moving in slow motion. You can't
I love
speed
it.
him up.
This is what we wanted. This is old school NBA right here.
No, Dave. No, man, Dave. I get what you're saying. I'm not saying he's not good. That's not what I'm saying. But it's what everybody. I'm saying I seen a meme where he's walking. Where's a cartoon meme? He's walking and his shadow is the GOAT. Come on, man. Like, stop. We're not. Look, I've been watching the game. All of us been watching the game 40 plus years. You're not about to disrespect my Shaquille O'Neals. You're not about to disrespect my Hakeem Olajuwon. You're not going to disrespect my Tim Duncans and my David Robinson of the world, man. Like, no, man, we're not going to do
It's
that.
funny, man.
Lord, pray for Jody,
Hey, Jody.
that he doesn't harden his heart.
Hey, Jody. Jody. He's what I call a perfect storm. He caught the NBA when they don't have any big men, and he's a big man who's very skilled and very good. And would he be this way in the era where all the big men were right there batting that shit back in your face?
Look,
no.
In a Pat Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon world, he can't do this.
No.
They won't let him. You see what I'm saying? But Rick Smith back in the day was getting his thing on.
Yes, he was.
The Flying Dutchman. He was getting his thing on.
Like I said, is he the best? He the best center in the league? Yeah, he's probably better than Embiid.
Currently, yeah.
But is he the best player in the league? No, it's still a guy named Giannis still playing. Last
but
time I checked,
good.
LeBron James ain't retired. Last time I checked.
Why y'all always, man? You know what, man?
He's the best offensive player in the league to me.
Man, all that damn walking.
I gotta give him that because
that Greek step and Euro step and whatever, all that. Man, Giannis in them, man. They fake, man. What? Fake.
All right. You're not about to. Giannis is showed that he a dog because Giannis number 2 is Middleton. Joker's number 2 is Murray.
Exactly.
They're the same people to me.
Murray is better than him. Come on, man.
No, they're not.
Hey, Jody, Middleton been an all-star. Murray never been one.
But Murray, we know Murray.
Murray is incredible.
Well, hold. Now, we're gonna take it back. He said one has been an all-star and the other wasn't. Right?
In different conferences. If Murray was in the Eastern Conference, he would have been 5-time All-Star by now.
And let me say this: the difference in Joker's second guy and Giannis' second guy is Joker don't have to throw the ball to his second guy with the game on the line because Giannis can't make a free throw. That's the difference right there. Now, Joker's not a defender like Giannis. He's not. He'll never be that. Giannis is super gifted athletically and physically strong and can do things that Joker will never be able to do. But in the 4-minute offense, you can't give Giannis that ball consistently because he can't make a free throw.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the game against the Miami Heat where he caught it and passed it real fast and ended up costing him the game because he didn't want to catch it. He just did shooting the free throws in game 4.
Right.
When Jimmy had the 56, Joker would have took that, went right to the free throw line and knocked in his free throws. Giannis don't want that. That's fellas, a problem for me.
Fellas, before we go, I have to do this.
Don't do it.
Y'all know who was somebody was Jesse James last night. Can you give me his name?
Kevin Love.
Henry Butler.
Butler was
Kevin Love. Why was he even playing?
6 points with 3 minutes to go in the game.
Come on, man.
Jesse.
And he got away with a flagrant foul when he kicked that guy. That should have been a foul on him.
Yeah.
He was a Jesse.
No, Kevin Love had 3 points and 2 rebounds. That's a Jesse, and he played like.
No, Kevin Love wasn't even playing.
Kevin Love,
so
96 years old.
Yeah.
It don't matter.
Yeah.
He played You played 35 minutes and you had the same stats as Adonis Haslam.
Kevin Love, 96 years old, Jody.
Kevin Love had 2 more rebounds than a dead man.
He said he had 2 more rebounds than a dead man.
Yeah.
Kevin Love.
I put Weekend at Bernie's in there. I'd at least get something.
Kevin Love been in the league 22 years, man. He been around forever, man.
Hey, they should have took his three points and 2 rebounds. Come on, man.
Terrible.
I'm gonna tell you, as good as Bam played, Bam missed about 50 layups in that series. He can make a layup.
In game one alone, he must have missed 10 easy shots. Flip, bunnies, because he was intimidated.
As we say goodbye to the NBA season,
yes.
We hope that it get a little bit better. But guys, right now is the first day of football season. Football season started.
Yep.
So,
that's what we're all about here at the TD Report. We love football.
And guess what? We need to tell Jody to stop having his players out there slam dunking like they on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And y'all see what I tagged to y'all. They were dunking better than the Cavaliers.
If Miles Garrett comes down on an ankle, it ain't gonna be fun in games no more. It ain't gonna be funny no more.
I don't know who the hell rolled that basketball rim out on the football field anyway. And when I find out who did it, they ain't gonna have no job either.
Man.
Hey, did y'all see?
When we get offline, I'll tell you a story about what I witnessed when I was in college. When a Heisman Trophy winner, two Heisman Trophy candidates were caught outside the dining hall playing pickup basketball the week of the Clemson game.
Sherman Moore and Herman Moore.
Yeah, and George Welsh walked out the damn cafeteria. He just looked at him, didn't say shit, and just turned around and walked back in. They was like, "Damn, I think Coach mad." They said, "I think Coach mad."
Kirby? Terry Kirby?
Yeah, Terry Kirby.
Terry Kirby was a freshman on that team.
Okay.
Yeah. But did y'all see Good Morning America with Peyton Hillis?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
He made hats off to him. He said he saw his niece and his son drowning. And he had to make a decision to go get his niece first because he thought his son could survive a little longer. And he said had he not got his niece when he did, she would have went away to the point where they probably would have found her. He said he got her, was coming back, and he said he's trying to swim in 7.5 feet of water to get to his son. He gets them both back to shore, and he just collapses right there on the shore. Kidney failure and lung failure, and he's in the hospital for 10 days before he woke up. 10 days. Because
he inhaled.
It was an amazing story, man.
He aspirated. He aspirated a lot of water into his system, and then that causes your organs to fail.
What's that dry drown, man?
No,
I got a roll, guys.
Drown.
Hey, Dan, can you write a piece on that, man? Because I didn't get to read that.
We'd love to hear about that.
I'll write something on Pelicans.
Thank you.
I got you. Yeah.
Hey guys, we want to give a shout out to Karen Stanton.
That's
my mother.
What's that?
That's my mother.
She was asking where you were, man. You ain't logged in on time, bro.
That's my mother, man. Yeah.
Hey, love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love mom. You better say hello.
So much for texting in.
Hey, mom.
That's my mama, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Hey, man. Definitely want to see you guys on Father's Day. I'll be there for the event. We're going to be at Tom's Watch Bar, guys. Anyone that's watching the show, like and subscribe to the show, but definitely check the page for the information and details on the Tom's Watch Bar event. We're going to be there for Father's Day. We're going to be celebrating. It's going to be great. What's going to be awesome to me is that Brian Mitchell is going to be there making a promotional appearance for us for the show. He will be there kind of our host, shake hands and talk with him or do a meet and greet. So it starts at 11 o'clock at Tom's Watch Bar. Show up, get yourself some brunch, and definitely tip the wait staff. The food there is incredible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hey, and good. Make sure we're going to be the official ones to try to start his campaign for the Hall of Fame. He's number 2 all-time in yards. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
He should have been
really serious about special teams. He has a ring, and he's number 2 all-time yardage leader in NFL history. 104 seasons.
Yep.
Come on, guys.
Hey, TD Report appreciates you guys for joining us, and thanks for watching. I'm your host, David Combs, in for Devin, and signing off for Big Tony, TK. We're going to be back on Thursday, right, boys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm in for Thursday, and we're going to
Back on
continue Len
Thursday.
Bias week, by the way.
Yes,
Len
sir.
Bias. All right.
Never
baby.
forget.
See you guys.
Appreciate you guys.
All
Thank
right,
you.
man. Y'all be good. Later, man.
Good night.
Later, fellas.
Make sure you guys catch us on Thursday, but catch us on Sunday. Tom's Watch Bar, National Harbor, with Brian Mitchell, B. Mitch. See you guys.